Much love and many blessings. In this segment, we'll be focused on the callings and energies of Anubis and the authenticity of what's to be expressed surrounding the rapper DMX. I was called to do this reading, like with many times with the energy that comes with transference, and when we transition through death, we're going through another phase, another cycle within our space. So energy is never just stops, but it just converts. So sometimes when there are things that we're reconciling in our life, or not reconciling, that energy, that momentum carries on. And you see that evidence in other cultures that speak on that, like with Santa Muerte and Day of the Dead, and how we speak on these ancestral energies and the power of the energies of people's momentum and what their energy is doing in this life and after. And it's interesting because with DMX, like my perception of him growing up, definitely as a more in my youth, because DMX, he was like a lot more prominent in the 90s, so I was still like in early teens and whatnot. So I did like rap, rap around that time in the 90s was definitely more gritty, not gritty, but just it had more like heaviness to it, more oomph behind it. Like it was always like a common thing, sending people to hell and being an Undertaker and like hell flames and all that stuff. Like that shit was like really dope back then. Like now, like rap is, it is what it is. It's more auto-tune, it's a little bit like softer. There's in some cool beats, but like just back then it was just more edgy. You had like Wu-Tang Clan, you had DMX, like just all that stuff, and like like just that energy of like we're not talking about, there was no internet, so it wasn't Twitter fingers, it wasn't none of that stuff. It was like if we really got a beef with you, like we'll show up at your door. Like it was more of a put hands to the energy situation. And DMX was is a fire sign of the Sagittarius. So that's very fitting because a lot of times with entertainers, with rappers, especially in the music industry, it's very common for rappers and musically inclined and talented to either be a fire sign, such as like a Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is the sign of seeing or being seen. So you'll find that a lot of actors and musicians are Sagittariuses, or especially in the music industry, they'll be Geminis, because it's very easy to put and orchestrate and put your thoughts and expressions together. So DMX was he was a Sagittarius, so he really didn't. It was very evident he didn't take shit. Like definitely seeing the themes of like the bulldog being personified and just embracing that masculinity, that culture of just being able to not be fucked with. You know what I'm saying? Like who we be. Like we're tired of taking shit. It was just a different era because you had to hustle and grind and like to really get your name out there. You know what I'm saying? The culture, like when you have the culture in the 90s didn't have the YouTube streaming sensation, so it was a lot more work. So like like when you look at like DMX's sales, I think like with one of his major albums, the Hell album, I think that sold like 200, 300, maybe 400,000 like albums like in the first week. And like sometimes like we'll compare artists now to like just artists then, when they're like, oh well, so and so outsold this iconic person, and it's like like what the fuck, like, because I'm pretty sure if DMX and Busta Rhymes and all these people had like streaming services and shit back then where you could just download a single and just you don't have to do the traveling work and tour work to produce these same results, they'd be like much bigger sensations and shit too. Okay, yeah, that was like wondering why that left out. Okay, the Wheel of Fortune came up. So I'm working with the fountain deck today, because the fountain, if you haven't used it, the fountain tarot is actually it's really deep, it's really powerful. I wouldn't call it a starter deck. It's not, if you haven't really been, if you're still like new to tarot, working with like some of your more early tarot decks, I wouldn't recommend the fountain because it tends to not be surface level, so to speak, and which is kind of fitting when because what about tarot is surface level. But the fountain deck tends to get very deep and intricate with the expression, because it breaks down a lot of the ego and just the underlying energies of motivations in its expression. I forget the artists that people put together, but it's a very intricate as far as its interconnectedness, and definitely when dealing with, I haven't used this one in a while because it's also as well. I find personally the way this deck is attuned to me that it doesn't necessarily like to be, for lack of a better word, recorded. For the collective, for masses, it's usually for more intimate, more one-on-one, or more just very specific occasions. I find, at least that's what it's attuned for me, and so I honor that for that. But I would recommend definitely checking this out if you have the time, and it feels called to your spirit to work with this deck and to see what it can do for you. But I definitely felt called to pull the fountain deck, and a lot of times when there's a lot of there's unanswered or energy that is weird, so to speak, and I say weird when energy is not on the surface making sense for what's presented. It's like there's a mask or veiling of what's being presented, and as creatures, we're supposed to read between the lines, and when we're presented with something that doesn't add up, usually that's a call for us to check the ledger, because that's where the truth is. And a lot of times, like the other time I had this sensation, because I don't read, I'm not called to read the energies around people's passing or transitioning, because that's part of life. Like we go through cycles, we do our best to embrace the concept and understand the wisdoms of death and transitioning and energy transference. But it is a part of life, just like the winter season's a part of life. We tend to focus on summer, spring, and the fall, but we don't really like to deal with the winter. We don't like to deal with the fact that things come to an end. We call it passing, or they moved on, or they've gone to a better place, because we don't like to call things what they are. And it also is a reflection of our culture and how we think ourselves. We don't necessarily like to deal with the ending, the finality it's not even the finality, because death is not final, but just dealing with the inevitability or the black and whiteness, the concreteness of death, and how just everything goes from one end of life and just stops. So sometimes when that aspect, that's a reality that we tend to have to embrace. So all deaths aren't called to be read, and all deaths don't call my spirit to investigate misalignment or just something that is not necessarily on the level. The other time I felt this way, there was that one girl, I think her name was like Sasha. I read her because my spirit called me to read her. She was the one that was that shop owner. She was up and coming. She was black. She was a black entrepreneur. She had a child, I believe, and she was shot and killed over it might have been with, something dealing with like her lover, or something along those lines. I felt called to read that because the energy didn't make sense. Like when Kobe Bryant passed, the energy didn't make sense surrounding his death. I actually read that a long time back when that happened, but the energy was too sensitive at the time to release, so I didn't release that. I sat on that because the spirit called that it needed to be known, but it didn't need to be released yet. So that's also coming as well. And I say all that to say that sometimes there are certain events that happen that either weren't supposed to happen, or something surrounding it was not natural. It's like, water flows how it flows. Like if water is cut off, a river is cut off from the main stream, or the river is cut off from the main body of water, it may have to go an alternate route to get there, but it eventually will get there. But if you notice that when man steps in and builds, say, like a dam, then there's no way for that river, that natural flowing river, to ever make its way back to the source. And that shows you that any time that man is involved in something divine, or man is involved in something going on, that divinity or nature can never over-trump that. It doesn't have a way to over-trump that unless we set things right. So I felt called verse 6 because I'm feeling a plateau, a prism. When a plateau is like usually when we reach our highest point, and this is usually the best that it can get on either end before it has to come back down. So as I was channeling this energy, Wheel of Fortune came out from Spirit, and Wheel of Fortune is its own, not Wheel of Fortune, Yeah, the Wheel of Fortune came out and it's its own unique energy. It's unique to the fountain. It's very fitting it came out because it's speaking to the interconnectedness. So it's definitely overall the message coinciding with, before I even reveal anything, is suggesting that there was definitely a domino effect of the energy that's coming out, leading up to, and the post wisdom of DMX passing. Sagittarius energy is very powerful, and when that flame goes out, it's felt because it's such a piercing, vibrant flame that comes from unlike any of the other fire signs in the zodiac. I will say that as well I would be weary, before our spirit speaks this, I would be weary of anything that you see in the media, even over the next few months or the course of this year, in regards to DMX, as far as authenticity, because there's this call that it may seem like on the level that it's for good purposes, but there is like this energy of either wanting to capitalize or make money off of what was left of him. So especially if you see associations or just things being sold, or products, or branding, or memorabilia, it's definitely to take a closer look at that and not just take it at surface level of, oh, we honor and respect DMX. You will see a lot of that energy coming up, especially in the music industry, and you may be seeing some cross branding or collaboration that may come up. If it hasn't come up, you will see those things come up, because there was kind of this void that was left, and it's kind of like, okay, we weren't really paying. There were people that knew about things going on with DMX, but it wasn't really a lot of aid or help. It was kind of like, okay, do this thing on your own, that's you. But now when these people pass, it's kind of like, oh, well, okay, well, let's remember this, let's point out that this was going on and we're doing all these things. And now, it's usually the tendency with funerals, it's usually the tendency with people who are passing, it's more about the people involved and the person that actually had this happening to. I think it's important to really take consideration of how people's process of the dead is handled. Ace of Coins. One of the books that I definitely recommend everybody read is Dune, and there was this group of sand people in that book series, Dune, that seemed like savages. They seemed like savages. Everybody didn't really understand their culture, but one of the things that they noticed about these people was how they handled the dead. And they didn't waste anything. And you really should look at any culture, any person, and how they handle the dead. Like, do they, loot the pockets? Like, oh, they just fucking kick the bucket. They fucking body is damn near not even cold yet, and they're going through their wallet, looting whatever they're worth. They're going through their house trying to liquidate all their shit. You know what I'm saying? So it's how you handle the dead speaks a lot to how you value life, because that's the one time when no one is technically looking, that you look at the situation and you just see things for what they are. The dead can't speak for themselves, and dead energy is what it is. So how you interact with that energy speaks to what it is, as far as how you value and appreciate that death. I see the Four of Swords and Ace of Coins coming up with this message as well. So I'm also feeling there's definitely more to this, but I feel a sense of a missing piece, or something that was needed, that was trying to be gained, especially with the Ace of Coins being here. But there is a sensation that we might not necessarily be able to utilize or make the most use of it. And it was very fitting. I was happy that DMX had, was recovering and had, was beating like old habits and things, and just switching his tempo for what it is that he wanted for himself. It ain't about me. It's about what he wants as a person. If you want to be a rapper, he wants to do this, that, or fucking third. That's all that matters. But I find that with the struggles of trying to shift and change, that there may not be a lot of aid or resources beyond just the enthusiasm. And when we see the sun come up and the reversal feeling as a confirmation, so sometimes there's this feeling that you can see what it is that you want, or know what it is that you want, but you may not know how to get to it. there's a sense of a delay to the warmth and the light that it is that you're seeking, or how to create the tangibility of the missing piece, which obviously the Four of Swords. And the Four of Swords being there as well also shows that there might not be a pause for taking that need to recuperate. It's kind of like that injured soldier. You know, he's got his fucking arm in the fucking sling, and you know, you hear the fucking war bells tolling, and it's like, what? You see him getting up out the bed, like, what you doing? Like, why you sitting up? Like, he's sitting there like, I gotta go fight, and you're like, you can't fucking fight. You injured. Take account of your situation. And this Four of Swords is kind of like, well, there's more work to do. I got to do this stuff, but do you have what it is that you need? Have you really taken that recharge? So there was always this mental drive or this lingering thing within his awareness or within the people around his energy space, that it was like this thing that was known, or was like this elephant that was kind of felt, but sometimes people didn't necessarily know what to do about it. Or the Hermit, it felt like he was dealing with a silent battle all on his own, especially when you don't feel as if you have anyone to turn to, or every time you get a new idea, it falls into the pot of more overthinking, or more, how can I make this a reality? And I swear that one path just creates more obligations and things to consider or think about. When you get new money, you don't worry about, oh, thank God, like I got this money. You worry about, oh shit, well, I can lose this new thing. So the new ideas that come up, that's why we see the Ace of Swords and the Hermit, just create more self-reflection on, am I actually doing or embodying these qualities and these things around me? Especially, you know, like I said, when COVID, post-COVID kind of period was happening, you know, there was definitely hearing like the good things in the news about DMX, you know, like being a pastor and his struggles and things of that nature. And with that, it seemed as if there was like this wanting to take a different pivot, because honestly, a lot of the people who made it, the people who didn't make it past 2020 and make it past COVID, were dealing with the upgrade, or essentially the reboot of coming into the post-COVID paradigm, the post-COVID way of thinking. The old way of pre-2020 is kind of out the window. Like those old norms, those old ideologies, those old dogmas don't really operate well within the new paradigm. And I'm talking not even on a neurological level, like there was a crown chakra shift. So you notice that a lot of the people that COVID took out was people whose mindsets weren't able to process the new neural system, or the new upgrade, or the new download. It was a collective paradigm shift. So that's why it was affecting children and old people the most, because those are the ones that have the hardest time adjusting or understanding a major shift or a major change that goes against or clashes with the dissonance that you may already be believing within your state. So a lot of old people, especially ones with fixed mindsets that couldn't process this new new world order, or this neo way of thinking, those are the people that had the most difficulty adjusting to the new things that were going on. And a lot of people who transitioned, I say that to say that a lot of people who there were people who either got COVID, came down with the symptoms and got through it and beat the symptoms, and their system upgraded, and they were able to power through that and take that new download to deal with this new post 2021 era, for this new millennium. And those people are able to process and deal with the things of this time period and going into this new era. So seeing DMX be okay and like actually get through, like be in this time period, you just assume, just like everybody else, that, oh, okay, well, this is part of a new collective, we're going to adjust to this new tempo. And it was just really shocking when, like when I was hearing on the news that like his health had, like it just randomly like declined or deteriorated. Seven of Wands. And speaking on plateau or building a pyramid, and Seven of Wands being kind of building a pyramid, is a very unique or specific way of constructing, because, only the difference between, there's a big distinct difference between a pyramid and a pile of rocks, one person's stacking. But what's so unique about the pyramid? What's so unique about what's being built? There was a reversal here. DMX had the tools, he had the capability and the means to create a new direction. There was a new direction there was something more that was wanted. He had reached his highest point, and he was shifting into new things. And there was a lot of quietness around him because, you know, those things don't buzz as much as, say, hearing about him being beefed out with his son, or him maybe relapsing on like coke and shit like that, or just the hint or the smell of those juicy, toxic, negative things that people will want to feed on. There was a different aim or shift that was taking place. And when I see this, I want to go over this again. Four of Swords, the Ace of Coins, the Sun reversed. That's a big deal here. The Hermit, two major arcanas in here. The Hermit and the Sun reversed, the Ace of Swords, and the Seven of Wands. There was so much that was built, but there was, in a sense, not a means to sort shit out, to clear the path, to look past the legacy of what was built. Sometimes we become a legend. We become the legend of our own fashioning and doing, whether it's from our own momentum and a combination of the people who have ramped us and helped build us. And we don't know how to step away or separate from the legend, and we become legend, and it takes on a life of its own. And it can be very consuming to have to battle and live with that or deal with that. And, you know, Sagittarius is definitely an energy of running wild with overthinking and allowing that. I believe it's the 9th house, so we're really dealing with that expansive thinking and philosophy. So sometimes we can create our own religions, and we can create our own way of thinking, and it can be fueled off of the seeds from things that we haven't let go of, the shackles we haven't let go of. Because with polarity, you know, Sagittarius being the sign of expansion and travel, the polarity is going to be shackles and commitments and obligations. So owning up to obligations, owning up to things that have happened or things that he didn't have control over. There was a lot of energy that he did not have control over. There was a lot of energy that he actually wasn't responsible for and wasn't actually his fault. There was some blindsiding, trying to find the answers on your own. That's why we see the Hermit. And when we don't find these answers, we feel lost. We feel as if we've somehow failed. I think the thing that's most heavy about the energy surrounding DMX is that the circumstances are still muddled, and a lot of what happened to him wasn't his fault. Not even leading up to the indirect, because the thing about death is it's similar to life in that it's hard to really know what causes death if it's not direct. You know, it can be your lifestyle that causes death. It can be indirect things. It can be holding on to a psychosomatic mindset that can cause your death. It can be things that you've taken in. It can be the toxicity of external projections from people around you who played on your shortcomings, who played on what it is that you wanted to create, Ace of Coins, and had a different vision, but used it or milked it for something else, and you wonder why the things didn't unfold the way that you wanted them to. And then you blame yourself. And then you really, really, really want to do something different, especially every time that you feel called in your spirit to want to make an impact. You see people and they seemingly seem as if they're crazy, or they seem like, what the fuck, where is this coming from? And these people are having spirit calls because there's something that they're trying to do, or there's some injustice or inaction, whether it's personal or just for a bigger calling that they feel that needs to be aligned. It hasn't taken place. Seven of Wands, even with all that's been built, there's something that gets lost in the foundations that doesn't allow for things to be seen clearly. That's why when we look at the foundations, the Four of Swords, Ace of Coins, like we got the momentum, we got the fashionings to build the house, to build the solidarity. But as we get started, why does it feel like more questions, just more ideas, more influences and resources just create more needing to question my process of how I carry myself and my rituals? Like, I'm successful, but was that the best way I could have did it? The Hermit, am I really the person? Am I really embodying these things? Am I dimming myself? Have I always been this person and I'm dimming myself because I needed to be this role because this is what people wanted me to be? Sometimes it can be very frustrating when you think that you have not lived for yourself, and it's very important that when you feel this energy of feeling as if that there was unreconciled things, feeling as if you lived a persona or lived in the shadow of your own, lived by the expectations of your own shadow self that's been denied, or lived up to the traumas and the manipulations of people around you, it can be very sad to see the potential of somebody that had great seeds fight so hard and seem erratic and not be understood. Because no one is really crazy, but we're just not understood when we're trying to express our emotions in a state where it doesn't seem like it's being received. This energy that's surrounding is an unexpressed energy, and around the time of death there was a release to step into peace from things that had to be accepted. Sometimes we're not able to do or to make sense of the things that we want to make sense of in life. We just don't have the tools, we don't have the emotional tools, we don't have the emotional clarity of the bigger picture. But we do the things that we're capable of, and the energy that comes out is carried on like a baton. And there's this baton, there's this energy of Sees the Hermit, of something deeper that was gained, something deeper that was discovered. And we may not necessarily know what to do with it. It's kind of like coming across something and realizing that you have to do something more with it, but you know you have a good thing. And that's what DMX did with his shifts, particularly with his shifts, but also with just the iconography of how he presented himself in life. And he realized what it is that he wanted to do and what more he wanted to do. And just that awareness or that mindfulness in and of itself is great for the consciousness, great for his consciousness, because nothing is ever too late. Everything is an ongoing journey. There's always work to be done, especially with the Anubis initiates. There's always work that needs to be done. I hope that this energy resonates with your spirit and that you can understand the importance and appreciation of someone who was a legacy and carried an energy like this. And he's not to be respected because he was just a rapper or he was in the media or he was a celebrity, but just as a person, each person goes through things. We're in this age of Aquarius, and we're seeing people now, and what we're noticing is that you being a celebrity, you having a bunch of fucking money, you being this, that, or third, doesn't stop your intrinsic truths, doesn't stop your soul desires and things that you need. Like, we have to honor that part of spirit. Spirit can't be denied. Ancestral balance can't be denied because you have a lot of money. It can't be denied. And there's these callings here that we have to respect that. We have to respect that energy. Let this resonate within your space to take those seeds, to realize what you're connected to, and to not make sacrifices for the sake of others, to not question ourselves. It's sad to question yourself, especially in your later years, to question the work that you've already done that you can't unretcon, to question your accomplishments, question if you should still be living with the actions. And sometimes when we leave ourselves to that mental vulnerability, other people can take advantage of that and weaken us, take advantage of our weak points in our armor, and push us along that comfortable easiness to just kind of go into giving up, to go into defeat, to go into defeatism. We have to protect the ones that we love. We have to protect our kind. We have to protect our generations. We have to protect those who teach us to have awareness of the things that we weren't paying attention to before. You have to protect your own. You have to protect your people. You have to protect people from the mental uncertainty, mental self-esteem, mental doubt, mental self-sabotage, emotional sabotage. There's $1 million ideas in everyone's mind that can shape and change the world around us if we conquer our traumas and move past those states that bring us into that state of defeat and uncertainty and feeling as if the sun is not available to us.